Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. That's because when I wake up in the morning, before my feet hit the ground, I decide it's going to be a groovy day. And 10 times out of 10, the day turns out to be groovy. Something might happen, something might change, but I always just think back. And I turned it around and turned it into a groovy deal. And you never know what's coming around the corner. It's also a groovy day because I get to hang out with my groovy friend, Jackie Bailey. She's been on this show now for 5 years. Her and I bring you great thoughts and ideas every week to help you on your life mastery journey. And it's a groovy day because it's life mastery.
Hey.
And I already introduced Jackie, but hi, Jackie. How are you, my friend?
Hello. I caught the crud that seems to be going around, so kind of dealing with that a little bit, but it is what it is. Life keeps going.
'Tis the season.
'Tis the season. I know, and I've tripled up on my vitamin D and everything, so.
It makes it worse because many of you know I went through cancer treatment back in October and November. And the radiation, because it was in my throat, knocked out my saliva glands. So getting a cold and not having saliva,
wow,
a truly, truly big challenge, but I'm getting through it. I have to sip water every once in a while. That's why I'm paving the way.
Interesting. Things you don't think about.
I know my throat gets
Here's something I didn't think about. I actually posted this on Facebook, and you may have said something about it.
See that, and I was blown away.
I know. So I was in the Denver airport on Saturday, coming back from speaking and training all the previous week, and I sit down to have a steak salad. And they bring me the salad, and the pieces of meat that they have in the salad are huge. And I have a butter knife, right, and a fork. And so I'm trying to cut this meat with a butter knife. And the waitress comes by me, and I said, "Could I have a steak knife, please?" And she said, "Ma'am, we're at the airport. We don't offer steak knives." What? I mean, it makes sense, but it's just something that you don't really think about. So anyway.
I thought it was a whole steak. I didn't realize it was a steak salad. And then I saw a post that you just pretty much had to tear it with your teeth.
I had to pick up those little pieces of meat and like tear it with my teeth. That's all I could do.
That's what I would have done. Just pick it up and bite it off.
Hey, I'm in the airport. No one knows me here. They're not going to remember me.
And no one has a steak knife, so you're okay.
That's right. They're all in the same boat.
Yeah, I thought that was just in a blue. I'm like, why would you even have a steakhouse? Of course, it's a steak salad, but why would you even have a steakhouse in an airport if you're not going to?
Well, and if that's the case too, maybe the chef can have a steak knife, right? So you should be able to maybe cut those pieces smaller, especially because it was a salad, Anyhow.
That was a very interesting post you did, Jackie. How are things with the kids? You got lots going on. You got 3 youngsters that are headed toward TEDx. You've got a women's group next week with 10 speakers.
The Voices of Women Summit is happening again for the 4th year. And for the 3rd year, they're giving an entire track to girls between the ages of 10 and 20. And of course, Kimberly Crow, who is a good friend of mine, she always calls and says, "Hey, you want to host that track, get some young women speaking on here?" And of course I say, "Of course I do." So we're getting some girls ready for that, as well as our TEDx speakers, and spending a lot of time with kids. And it's great. We have our club meetings that are happening tonight and tomorrow as well. So spend a lot of time with them. It's great. These are good individuals. They've got bright futures, and they're fun to play with.
Speeches that these kids come up with are amazing,
Yeah.
and their little brains are far more advanced than what we imagine or suspect.
And their hearts are far bigger than we would suspect, based
Mm-hmm.
on the news that you might listen to and things that kids do that might be a little bit crazy or cruel. They really have big hearts.
I
So,
agree. I agree.
yeah,
Yeah, if you want to find out
Compassion for
more,
each other.
absolutely.
Yeah.
you want to find out more, if you've got a youngster, a young adult that is you're looking for a direction, or not even that you're trying to guide them, just steer them Jackie's way and see if they blossom, because I guarantee you they will. We watch these kids, every time I watch them, I just think, man, we're looking at the future president or future corporate leaders of
Woohoo. Yep.
it's just amazing. And to give them a jump start like that, right? I couldn't imagine being that old and having to jump on things like that. It would
Really.
have totally changed my life,
Right? I know.
instead of
Well, it's
working.
just,
I
one
agree.
of my new clients just said to me yesterday, I was meeting with her. It was just like our second meeting, and we're putting together her message for the Voices of Women Summit. She said, she's 15. I'm so excited about this because this is going to make a difference for the rest of my life. Everything I do now is going to be better because I'm having this experience at learning how to communicate better and speak. I'm just like, yes, exactly. That's what I've been trying to say. And to hear it from her mouth
And that she gets it.
and that she
That
gets
she's made it her own. She's going in with this understanding and intention. I mean, that is amazing.
yeah,
And they come out with wings,
they do.
you know?
Get those. Don't forget to get those testimonials, Jackie. You got to get those.
That's right.
I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.com. We have a link to our guest already up there. And if there's any other links that we talk about today, we'll post them there. And later on in the week, Jackie will post up her blog post about today's show so you can review it or share it or pass it around your group, because you know what, this is a pretty cool show, and people need to hear some of the messages that we have from our guests on the show. I truly think, and everybody else thinks so too that listens to the
Yes.
show. So check it out. We're on YouTube. Go to YouTube channel and check out all of our shows. We must have 300 of them up there. You can find a plethora of topics that will interest you, and everything on Life Mastery Radio is designed to help you on your very own life mastery journey. Sign up for the newsletter, all of that good stuff. Okay, it's time to get on with the show. And I think I have an introduction. I do. Our guest today is Meredith Heller. And Meredith is the author of Writing by Heart, Write a Poem, Save Your Life, and several poetry collections. Meredith is a poet, singer-songwriter, avid nature lover, and educator with degrees in writing and education. She leads writing workshops online and in person at schools, juvenile detention centers, women's prisons, and wellness retreats. Meredith, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you today? Look at that big smile. She's just shining brightly and ready to jump right into it.
I am so well. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you. I feel like I'm sitting in your living room, and we have Yoda, one of my favorite mentors,
Yoda's watching all this, and
right
so
behind you, sending the flow. I'm
Buzz
good.
Lightyear's guarding us too, and he's guarding the flag, and we're all set.
We got all the helpers. We're good. We're good to go.
Yes, we are surrounded by angelic beings helping us to put your message out today, Meredith, and we're excited.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So we were talking in the beginning of the show, about teaching kids to speak their voice and hear their voice. And I heard you say on a podcast that, well, I'll paraphrase it. It's like a spiritual connection when we write from the heart and speak from the heart, and we come away from doing something like that, if we're conscious of it, a little more excited a lot more excited about the message that we're delivering. Did I get that right? I think I did.
You might even say we're more enlivened.
You would say
You might you might even say that. I think that what a great opening, by the way, because what we're really talking about is creative space, which is a relationship with ourselves and with our creativity or our muse, or the life force itself or deep psyche, and opening this channel where we listen deeply. And when we are in creative flow, when it's flowing, whatever our medium is, we are connected to something that is bigger than just the small self. And we are always transformed in the process. And I think, like any creative, when we're in that creative zone, there is no me and the thing I'm creating. So for me with poetry, when I'm really in that flow of writing, there's not me, the poet, and then the poem. There is simply poeming.
poeming. I like
Poeming,
that.
right? And so I've been thinking about that a lot, and how I just have to admit, and I think a lot of creatives say this kind of thing. I don't know if I wrote the books or the books wrote me. This is the feeling, and always transformed, inspired, enlivened, deepened. You said energized. Yeah, more fully present here and here in myself, and then how I connect to the world. And I think when we give this to kids, like you were saying, they blossom. And
So
women and everyone. Yeah.
it's a little bit different than just writing out on a piece, right? So the kind of creative writing you're talking about, you really have to get in the groove, right? So help us understand that process, because it's not like just writing, right? Or writing, you're actually getting in a zone where it's flowing through you. Okay.
Well, that's a good thing to bring up. So one of the main things that I say, I had an old yoga teacher who used to say, this is not a yoga perfect. It's a yoga practice. And so I made that mine. And I say to everybody who comes to workshops, and it's in the first section of the introduction of Write a Poem, Save Your Life, this is not a writing perfect. It's a writing practice. And a practice is something that we show up and do in whatever rhythm works for you. I mean, if you can do it every day, great. If you can do it once a week, that's your rhythm. You have to be true to your rhythm, but to show up no matter how you feel, not just to write when you're in the flow or when you're in the zone, but to write even when it's hard, and to be present with that. This too is allowed here in my writing practice, where I show up and just be honest with myself. What's bubbling up in my belly? What's bubbling up in my heart, within myself, and in response to the world that I'm connected with? And all of it is welcome. Your sadness, your depression, your anger, your lethargy, your grieving, your sorrow, your hot mess, your brilliance, your bravery, your love, your longing, your desire. Make room for all of it in your writing. Your writing doesn't have to look or sound or be like anything except a mirror for you to know yourself more deeply and more clearly. That's how I approach it. Sometimes you're in the zone, and that's a good day. And sometimes you're not, and that's still okay.
So
Like the thumbs up sign behind
I
you.
don't know how to stop that. It's really
like
funny.
those
Sometimes it's
angels. Shut up.
sometimes a big celebration happens.
Yeah.
where'd that come from? Is that from?
It's in the reaction things, and I've actually tried to disable it because it's distracting. But then I like when we laugh about it. That's the best.
Yeah. Well, Meredith, even from your very first chapter, I love that you talk about the organic connection that happens with, you say, body, brain, hand, and heart when we're actually holding a writing utensil in hand and putting it down on paper. And I've always said that. I agree with it 100%. And so thank you for having that so early in your book. And one of the very first things you actually do is describe what poetry is. Now, if someone were to ask me what poetry is, I would say it's some sort of prose or stanza that rhymes or has some sort of rhythm to it, but that's not what you define it as. So can you tell us how you define
Yeah,
it?
thanks for talking about the pen. I call these the magic wands, by the way.
Yeah.
And it is such a different experience, just in our DNA, we have been writing. Writing is a dance with the body and the paper. Tapping, it's a different dance.
Yeah.
It's a different dance. It's great to switch it up even. I have an ancient press typewriter. I think it's from the 40s.
Wow.
That I sit and type on because it uses an entirely different part of my brain and I'm less attached to what comes out. So that's fun too. So switch it up. But yeah, really to get from the heart, use the magic wand pen.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for what you said about that introduction into what is poetry. And I want to start by saying I'm using poetry these days as an umbrella term to hold space for this kind of personal, self-reflective, expressive writing that we're doing, that you'll do if you follow along with the book, that you'll do when you come to workshop. And because poetry itself sometimes intimidates people. So you can do any kind of writing you want with us or with this book. Poetry, prose, story, mind spill, heart spill, song lyrics, make up your own form, just write. This is the message. Okay, so then what is poetry? And I love this, and I love your answer. And I talk about this in the introduction, that when I ask adults, what is poetry? They say very sensical, right things like you did. It has stanzas, it could have some prose, sometimes it rhymes, it's a way of telling things slant. But when I ask kids, and I taught kids for 30 years as a poet in the schools, when I ask kids, what is poetry? They nail it. They say feelings. Boom, they get it. And I think most all creative expression starts with feeling. And that's really what we're tracking and making room for in ourselves. So right now, I've just started a new workshop this week called Spark the Muse. And it's great. It's so much fun. It's our spring celebration, the muse, the spark. We're coming out of the dark hibernation of winter when we did a workshop called Roots. Roots, it was deep. And so Spark the Muse is very much about this, learning to track what moves us, what catches our eye, our ear, our sensation, our feelings, our memories, moves us to the place where we have the urge, the want, the need to spill open into expression.
Wow.
So to me, that's what poetry is.
Yeah. That's
I've
beautiful.
never heard it described quite that way. This is you're taking people on a guided tour of self-awareness. Isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah. And that's what it's all about. I just got chills when you said that. And that's my my barometer of yes. So yes, absolutely. I love that. A guided tour of self-awareness, and then to express it. So first you become self-aware here, then you express it, and it's fed back to you. It feeds you back through the writing. And when you come to workshop, through the interaction with the other participants. We are like this shared cross-pollinating garden.
Yeah.
And
bringing bringing it back to the group and the sharing, oh my gosh, that's just off the chart, because now you're possibly influencing somebody else. I mean, where two or more are gathered, I am there, is what I'm reminded about. And that's the way that, yeah, that's the way that works.
There's two really important things that happen in circle, in workshop. One, we're sharing our pieces and we're hearing other people's stories. So we become aware of our commonality, that in general, most of us as human beings have the same hopes and needs and fears and desires and loves. So we learn we're not alone. One. Simultaneously, paradoxically, we learn that our experience and everything that's happened in our life is unique and it matters. Our voice matters. The way we weave our story and our voice into the collective whole, whether it's in that workshop or in our family or in our community or in the people we touch through our work and the people we love. Our unique voice matters. And like you were saying, influences, cross-pollinates, and sparks other people as we are sparked by others.
Amen, sister.
It is such a beautiful process. I mean, usually halfway through every workshop, and the poems are just blowing your mind and breaking your heart open. And I'm like, welcome to Poetry Temple, you know, because we're all just like, oh my God. It's amazing. It is amazing. It's my hugest passion. Tuesday was my 60th birthday, and everyone said, Meredith, why are you teaching on your birthday? And I said, because it's my favorite thing to do.
Of course. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I just turned 60 recently as well. So
Oh,
welcome
happy
to the club.
birthday. Happy birthday. I feel like I'm just hitting my stride. Watch out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, so have you always known this, or was there a trial by fire in your life where you found this peace and enlivenment that comes from poetry, or from at least self-expression in some way?
It was all of that. I grew up as a creative. I sang, I danced, I did theater, I read voraciously. And then as a young teenager, 12, 13, I became really disenchanted with society and school and the dysfunction in the family I grew up in. And I left home at 12, 13 years old and raised myself, living in domes I built in the woods along the Potomac River in Maryland, about 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. I lived in domes I built in abandoned houses and in old barns. I was very alone. I suffered with horrible depression. I was in, I had a lot of trauma. I was in a lot of confusion and overwhelm with my feelings. And all of my closest friends were dying of suicide and drug overdose, and I wasn't far behind them. And poetry and songwriting, I'm also a singer-songwriter, found me. And I would get the first line of poem or song lyric with melody into my left ear, like a lifeline or a work permit that said, stay here. Do the work to find the words that name the overwhelm, the loss, the confusion, the search, the longing. Find the words to name it. And through doing that, I began to find clarity, understanding, a way of holding what was going on and expressing it back to myself so that I could be with it in a way that it didn't rip me apart. And the whole story of that is in my first book, Write a Poem, Save Your Life. The introduction tells how poetry found me and what I was going through in my life. And then also how I came to realize that poetry is my path. is my passion and my purpose and what I came here to share with the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yes, both. It was natural and it was a trial by fire.
So how did you get through that then? At what age did you finally have some stability?
Oh,
In
last year, maybe? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, okay.
Um, it took me a really long time.
Yeah.
I I was on my own for a long time. I got a high school, I dropped out of school. I was in an alternative high school. I dropped out when I was about 14. I got a GED, which is a high school equivalency. I went to massage school. I was a body worker doing rehab of spinal cord injury patients for 27 years.
Wow.
That was an amazing career for me because it allowed me to take my capacity to tune in deeply and to help others. And I learned so much in that work that I know serves me in everything I do. In fact, in the new book, there's a very big chapter called Body Language.
Mm.
And it's one of my favorites because, after working with hundreds of thousands of bodies, what I learned is that the body holds the stories. And if we give it an invitation, it will teach us its language, its wisdom, and the medicine that it needs. So
Mm.
body language is a big chapter in writing by heart. So then I went to college for the first time at 25, worked really hard, graduated highest honors, got a fellowship to the writing seminars at Johns Hopkins, went on and did 2 master's degrees, one in writing, one in education, different ways of learning, different kinds of intelligence. I had a lot of trouble learning in regular school. It's one of the things that added to the compounded complex reasons I left.
Mhm.
I'm a kinesthetic learner. I grew up dancing. I couldn't make math work in my head. And when I got up to dance in the back of class to try to get my body to understand fractions, it didn't go over real well.
A nonconformist, but wait,
Who, me?
I'm trying to do this calculation. Hold on.
Yeah, let me do a little Bollywood.
Wait, did you say a third? Let's see. So So I wanted to really understand different approaches and different ways of learning so that first, so that I could learn how I learned, so that I could teach myself whatever I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Two, so that because I knew I wanted to work with teens. I tell the story in the first book, Write a Poem, Save Your Life, how I was walking through I hike every day. I'm a big nature person, and I was hiking through the woods one day and realized this is what I want to do. I want to get to the kids who were like me, bright and creative and falling through the cracks
Mhm.
because the system can't reach them or tap them where they're alive. And I want to get to those kids and help them to believe in themselves before they give up on themselves and society the way I did. So they don't have to kind of rebirth themselves
Yeah.
and go
and
through
and
that.
do it the hard way, right?
So they
Learn,
don't have to do it the hard way. And
right?
so that they have support, which I didn't. Yeah.
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 Well, so you've had a lot of education, both just through living and also through the system. And now it feels to me like you're using both of those to your advantage and to the advantage of others to teach them how to enliven their own lives and bring more into it, right? So, tell us about these workshops that you put on. What do you teach, and what does the outcome look like for most of your students?
Oh, thank you. So I teach these workshops after being a poet in the schools for 30 years, first in Boulder, Colorado, then in Marin County, California. I was teaching in the schools full on, and the pandemic hit us, and all the classes went on Zoom, and the kids burned out. They turned into Zoom zombies. I burned out, and I eventually found my way to teaching workshops for adult women, which was actually pretty funny because I was specializing in workshops for teen girls for empowerment and self-expression. And one of the mothers of one of the girls who came to my poetry writing workshops for teens said during the pandemic, would you teach a workshop for me and a few of my women friends? And I said, I don't know if I know enough to teach adult women. I don't know if I know enough. And she said, oh, Meredith, I've been secretly sitting outside the door of my daughter during your workshops and doing all the writing for years. I think you know enough.
Wow.
So much for confidentiality. And
Yeah.
so I started the first women's workshop in October of 2020 with 8 women from Marin in the Bay Area. And when that was over, that was a 5-week workshop. They asked for another one and brought their friends from around the country. And so we grew from 1 cohort to 2 to 3. We have recently outgrown our flower pots. We now have 5 cohorts. The beauty of Zoom is that we have women from all over the country, a few women from around the world. We have women that get up at 1 a.m. and Zoom with us from Egypt and Croatia and the Netherlands. We have women in New Zealand and England and Alaska and Nova Scotia and all across the United States. So the workshops meet once a week for a 5-week series. Then we take 2 weeks off, which gives everybody a breather, and it gives me 2 weeks to create the next workshop. We roll this way through the whole year, including the summer.
Wow.
And we are growing. We are growing. And the workshops are just such a fabulous community, warm and supportive and inviting. And we laugh and cry together. A community was birthed to bridge the lack of connection during quarantine. And it has grown into a hearth where we grow ourselves.
I wouldn't say it just for quarantine. I think this is the way we make a difference in the world, with exactly what you're doing, because you're working with what you're passionate about. You're helping others to discover theirs, and it's infectious.
Yeah.
And it spreads like wildfire. I do have to say though, if someone like me shows up, someone that looks like me shows up wearing a wig, you won't blow my cover, will you?
You can come. I teach for other institutes and summits and creativity and wellness summits that are co-ed, and I will open a cohort or 2 that are co-ed because so many men are now asking. Every time I ask the women's groups, can I let men in? They say no. They just want a place where they can, I want to say, be themselves. Not that we can't be ourselves when it's co-ed, but it's different.
It
It's
has a
just
huge
different.
impact. And I'll share this quick story. That's
Yeah.
not the first time I've used that line.
Yeah.
I've used that line before on a woman that was introducing a seminar called Exploring the Feminine. And this was many years back. And I thought, oh boy, if I could get into this, I can fill my little black book. That was my thought.
Got it.
And so I pulled that line on her, and she says, Todd, I want you to come. I want you to show up. And I did. And there was 200 women in that room. And I went through some processes and some exploration and some other things that opened me up to my feminine side and changed my life forever.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Just to share that story with what you're talking about, opening it up to co-ed, I mean, there's a way to influence an even greater amount of people if guys wake up to those kinds of insights.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's a good encouragement to open a co-ed cohort. Okay. I'll let you know when I open it. You won't even have to wear your wig.
I don't have to wear a wig, but you might see me in a wig anyway because you
Yeah,
have.
that's fine. Whatever floats your boat, friend.
Well, Meredith, you say that there's the elements of earth and fire and water and air. Um, they add a lot to the fuel of our writing. Do you want to explain what you might mean by that?
Sure. Thank you. I love that. So that very first workshop I opened with those 8 women from the Bay Area that I mentioned, that was our first workshop in October of 2020, and it was called Elemental Wisdom.
Mm.
And we called on the power of the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, to revitalize our lives, especially during quarantine, when we all felt so cut off from our normal ways of being with each other and in the world. And I thought, what can we call on here? Let's
Mhm.
call on the elementals, right? So we called on the elements to revitalize our lives and fuel our writing and deepen us into passion and purpose and community, calling on the different qualities, water flowing and persistent. They say it's the strongest of the elements. It's patient. Drop by drop, it can carve a canyon. How do we work with that in ourselves? How do we relate to that in our lives? Where do we do that in our lives? And then fire, that energy, that spark that can be both warming in our own homes and hearths, how we feed ourselves, cook food. It can also be destructive, and looking at both of these aspects in our lives, in ourselves. Air, this thing that connects us all, that is invisible, without which we cannot survive. In concert with the trees, everything in interbeing, interrelationship. And earth, our home, our grounding, where our food grows from, the depth of fertile soil, the cycles of fallow and fruitful in ourselves, in our lives, as we learn and grow and change. So we worked with all of these elements. And I personally love personifications. When we take something that is not human and we give it human characteristics and qualities. So we do fun things in the first chapter, which is elemental wisdom in the book. We turn the elements into people. What would they look like? What would they wear? What would they talk about? What are their hopes? What are their fears? Who are their friends?
So these
What
are
are their
all
dreams?
that you would write about, right?
You would write about. These are all writing invitations in this book. And then at one point in this chapter with the elements, the first chapter, we become an element and we speak and write from I am water, I am
Whatever.
earth.
Wow.
I was going to ask you if, in your experience, if you've noticed that people choose one perspective of an element and they typically write from that element going forward, or are they able to mix in all of the elements into their writings? What have you found or seen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that we all gravitate toward one element that we feel either that we relate to the most
Mhm.
or that we find exciting. Like I would always choose water. I'm very watery, but I
Yeah.
might choose to write about fire to challenge myself because it's a little scary and a little exciting and I don't quite know it very well,
Yeah.
so like that. And so then I would encourage all the participants to do the same thing. Write about what feels familiar elementally for you. Which element do you feel like naturally? And then the next time you write about the one that you feel you don't have as
Mm.
close of a relationship with. And maybe you can build a relationship and figure out where in your life that those qualities of that element could feed you and enliven you.
Hmm. Interesting.
So
Okay.
there's always room for experimentation and exploration. You're not trying to write a great piece and you're not trying to write for somebody else. You're writing to explore, to learn, to discover something about yourself that hopefully feeds you on a
Yeah.
soul level. There's the thumbs up.
That's,
Yeah, it is again.
that's a really good point. There's that thumb again. Boy, you're really hitting the dinger on with people. Let's back up a little bit and talk a little bit about that you're not writing to be published or for other people to read, right? You're writing as a self-awareness experiment. So how often do you go back and read your prior writings, right? Isn't that kind of the process, is to go back and then explore what it was that came out of you?
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Todd. It's a really good point about that. So if you're working with the book, or when you come to workshop, especially, what we do is I introduce a theme. I read an example poem. We talk a little bit. I might ask questions that give you information that will inform your writing. And then we usually do what I call a body mindfulness guided journey meditation that helps you access the information from your body, from your felt sense, from your senses, from your imagination, from deep psyche, that's going to inform your writing. Then we write during workshop, 15 to 20 minutes. Then we share. We always share. You share every single piece you write, whether you like it or not. I mean, whether you like your piece or not. And
Yeah.
making room. Hey, I don't always write great pieces. I always say, if you write for 20 minutes or an hour and you get 2 good lines, that's a good day of writing.
That's a great confidence builder, though. Deep down inside, that builds huge confidence.
Yeah. So we share our pieces, and then I will feed back to each poet and each poem, which I now believe is a living being, the poem itself. Feed back to that poem the lines that sing, the lines that move, the lines where the tears come up.
Mm.
And then I'll open the floor, and a few participants will feed back to that poet and that poem those lines that moved them. And it becomes this chorus that fills the person, making new neural pathways and allowing them to receive their own medicine that came through the feedback loop of this piece. It is really an amazing process.
Wow.
So yes, on the reading our pieces back to ourselves. And we can do that right away, and then we could wait a week, a month, a year, 10 years. I had a box of journals. I tell the story in the first book, Write a Poem, Save Your Life. I had a box of journals, and I'm Zen minimalist. I don't have many things because I've moved a lot. And also I just like clear space to be able to think.
Mm-hmm.
But I carried around a box of journals for 30 years.
Hmm.
There was 57 or 67 journals.
Wow.
And I never read back through them. And one day I was getting ready to move, and it just hit me, this is the day. And I sat down, I cleared my entire day, and I sat down with the box of journals, and I took them all out, and they were all over the floor, all around me. And I sat for 10 hours and read through them, tore out the pages I liked to keep. And it integrated so much of my past and what I'd been through, and my struggle and longing to understand myself, who I am, why am I here, what do I have to offer, and to learn the patterns of my own being, how I process. It was so incredibly empowering. And then I took the box of journals to the dump, and I let go.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Yeah, that's
And I
fascinating.
felt lighter. Man, I felt like this huge thing had just like poof. And yet all the good stuff was inside me. I had
Yeah.
integrated it and made it my own. It was very powerful.
Yeah, it's like you were transmuting all of that back into the earth. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so it can compost and grow into something new.
Right. Interesting.
Fascinating. That's just
Now, I
fascinating.
think the answer to this is yes, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Because you mentioned that the goal of your programs are not necessarily to publish something, right? But what if there are people who do want to publish something and they've run into the dreaded writer's block? Have you found a case where your encouragement, your work will help someone to, I don't know, renew the message that they want to give in a public work?
Beautiful question. Thank you. Um, writer's block and wanting to get published, two different things and yet connected. For writer's block, I usually say change your environment. So if you're in a city, go to nature. If you live in somewhere rural, go somewhere where there's more stimulation, so that you are changing how you perceive and what is moving you. Personally, I have to move my body. When I sit, my brain doesn't work. The minute I go out to take a walk, I'm talking 10 steps into my walk. I've got the whole next workshop. I know what I want to do with the poem. And I just take notes on my phone. By the time I get home from my hike, I have 10 to 15 notes, and then I start working with them, whatever they are. So that is what I usually suggest in terms of writer's block and remembering. This is so challenging that our cycle is a whole cycle, which means there are times of fallow and times of fruitful. And to allow, and we don't allow this in our culture and society, the fallow times. There's a whole chapter in Writing by Heart called Fertile Darkness, where we really allow ourselves to embrace the darkness, the empty, the downtime, and what germinates in there. That seeds go into the darkness, because this is where the juju lives. And we have to allow the empty part of our cycle so that we are whole. So that's all about writer's block in terms of getting published. I think poetry is the hardest genre to get published in. I think poetry editors who do publish are, like most creatives, pretty moody. You never know what they're looking for on which day. So you have to do something that is not natural for poets and poetics and creatives, and that is to have a thick skin. We don't have a thick skin, which is why we're creatives. We allow ourselves to be moved. It's starting to rain here, if you hear that. And you can water us, we'll grow. And it's why we are moved and why we are inspired, because we don't have a thick skin. Getting published, sending your poetry, sending your writing out, you're going to get a lot of rejections. It's not fun, but it's part of the process. And I encourage people to do it if that's something that they're interested in. There's another nice thing, which is that so many people are self-publishing poetry collections these days. And I think there used to be shame around it, and there isn't anymore. There's almost pride in it, and honor, self-honoring in it. So that's a great way to go. And you can still send stuff out to poetry collections, literary collections, poetry zines online, and try to get published. It is really thrilling to get something published. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're a good or bad poet, if you do or if you don't. So you've got to, you have to love yourself extra special when you're gonna try to get published.
Oh my goodness, ladies, the clock is ticking down, and we kind of want to honor Meredith. We have something else scheduled. So Meredith, as we start to wind down here, is there Wait, I have one more question. What do you tell the person that's sitting on the fence? The person that says, I don't know how to write. I'm just not a writer, and yet they're attracted to the end result. What do you tell that person?
There was a wonderful day in class, in workshop, many moons ago, and a woman was in workshop and she was having a little bit of a meltdown, which I thought was great because it was kind of the shadow piece, and everybody feels that a little bit, but for someone to really give it time and space and express it, I was just cheering her on. It was fabulous. I love when people bring the shadow, the thing that nobody's willing to say, but we all feel woohoo, right? So, it gets to her time to read, and she's kind of having this meltdown, and she says, I'm not a poet. I don't know what to write. I don't know how to name my feelings. I'm just going to pick up my paintbrush. I'm leaving this call, and I'm taking notes as she's saying this, and I read it back to her like a poem. I'm not a poet. I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to name my feelings. I think I'm just going to go pick up my paintbrush. And she received it. And she heard the truth, the raw, genuine thing that she was feeling and expressing. And that's all that I'm asking. The raw, genuine thing that you're feeling and willing to express. So when you're sitting on the fence, it's really about valuing ourselves, making time to say, I believe in myself, I matter. And this is a tool. Writing, this kind of writing, is a doorway home to self.
Yeah. Wow.
I was going to say, is there a last minute word or last minute shot that you would like to tell our guests, our listeners? And well, you came up with
That was it. Yeah.
That was the one.
Yeah.
Writing is a path home. I walk myself and I walk others home.
It's an exploration of self, really. I mean, I've never heard somebody quite put it, and I've been around a lot of writers, and I am around a lot of writers and writing instructors and teachers, but I've never heard them explain it and put it in the words that you do. So thank you so much for showing up as you today and opening some doorways. I got to find my way. I just definitely got to find that way, because I'm going to show up at one of those seminars. That's for sure.
You find that wig and I'll recognize you. I know who you are. It was so wonderful to talk with both of you. Thank you so much. I loved it.
Yeah. Jackie, any final thoughts or final question did you
Well,
have?
our audience may want to know how to find out about these workshops. So do you have some place to direct them to if they want to learn more, Meredith?
MeredithHeller.com.
All right.
It's all happening. And the book is available everywhere books are sold.
Okay.
Go to your favorite bookseller. The first book, Write a Poem, Save Your Life, came out in 2021, tells my whole story and includes example poems from the teens I worked with for 30 years. The new book, Writing by Heart, available everywhere books are sold. And this documents the workshops I've been doing with women since the pandemic.
Nice.
Full of beautiful, amazing writing invitations and heartbreaking open example poems from the warrior women who come to workshop. They're my heroes.
What do you take away today, Jack?
Oh, so much. I mean, I love that poems are feelings. That really gave me perspective on writing and what that means. And I take that to the kids when they're working on their speeches. It's feelings, right? It's feelings. So
yeah, there's so much power in what Meredith
Share this
said.
book with your kids.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much, both of you. This was just incredible. And I'm going to go teach Spark the Muse right now. And I'm sparked and I'm enlivened.
Thomas, my friend, that's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you'll connect with our guests. And my biggest hope is that you'll go check out our YouTube channel. Lastly, please, please, please make it a great day, because it is all about choice and you can write about it. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.